Welcome back to Advocate with Dr. Rufus Lowe, and tonight we step into a powerful comparison, a conversation between two ideas separated by decades, but connected by one enduring question, and that is, who controls truth? Shall we begin? On one side, we have George Orwell, the author who imagined a world where propaganda reshaped reality in his novel 1984. It's a dystopian novel written in 1949. On the other side, we have a modern concept I call shadow tolerance, the idea that darkness survives not always because it's forced upon us, but because it's tolerated. And tonight we ask, are we living in Orwell's nightmare, or have we created something even more complicated? So let's look at Orwell's warning. Orwell's world is simple, and that's what makes it terrifying. That one government, one narrative, one approved version of truth. History is rewritten, language is narrowed, citizens are taught to accept contradictions, what Orwell called doublethink. The party doesn't just control information, it controls memory. Because if you control memory, you control reality. If Orwell's world, or in Orwell's world, propaganda is a weapon aimed directly at the human mind. The goal is obedience. But here's where I pause, because many people, too many people, this is exactly like today, and I disagree. Not because propaganda doesn't exist, but because the mechanisms have changed. So let's talk about that. Shadow tolerance. In my framework, propaganda doesn't always come from one powerful center. Today, it comes from everywhere. It comes from news feeds, algorithms, influencers, politicians, echo chambers. Instead of one ministry of truth, we have many competing ministries. Every group claims to be the light, and everyone else becomes the shadow. Shadow tolerance says this: we do not just suffer misinformation, we choose comfort over complexity. We tolerate the shadows when they protect our identity, our politics, or our tribe even. Orwell feared forced blindness. Our danger may be voluntary blindness. So let's explain how this battlefield works. Orwell warned us about newspeak, language shrinking until thought itself becomes impossible. Today, language doesn't shrink, it fractures. Words become weapons. Words like patriot, woke, traitor, freedom, danger. These words no longer describe reality. They signal allegiance. And once language becomes tribal, conversation becomes combat. That is where shadow tolerance thrives, because shadows grow when people stop listening and start labeling. So what's the key difference here? Let me be clear. We are not living inside Orwell's world. You and I are talking right now. Debate exists, criticism exists, voices challenge each other openly. And in 1984, dissent is erased. Today, dissent is everywhere, but often drowned by noise. Orwell imagined silence. We lived in overload, or currently we live in overload, and overload can be its own form of control. So let's talk about the mirror, because it's a question. Here is the harder question, and this is where shadow tolerance turns the mirror towards us. Orwell asked, what happens when power controls truth? Shadow tolerance asked, what happens when people stop caring whether truth exists at all? Because propaganda does not work only when leaders spread it. It works when citizens stop questioning what feels good to believe. Think about that a little bit. So let's get to a signature moment. The shadows are not always imposed. Sometimes they are invited. Sometimes they are defended. Sometimes they are rewarded. And the greatest danger is not the lie told loudly. It's the silence that follows when we refuse to challenge it. So in closing, let's have a little bit of a reflection. Orwell's lesson was fear of total control. Shadow tolerance is a warning about gradual surrender. The question isn't whether propaganda exists, because it always has. The question is this: are we brave enough to step into the light when the shadows make us comfortable? Let's think about that for just a second. This is Advocate with Dr. Riverslow. Tell your story. Listen to someone else's and never stop questioning who benefits from the narrative you're given. I'll see you in the next conversation.